It's International Podcast Day.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, my name is Will Sinclair. And this is The Real Truth About You, a show where we give you the tools to live a life full of abundance. Today's podcast is a little bit different. This is September the 30th, or at least it was September the 30th. Depends on when you're listening to this. And it's International Podcast Day, and to help celebrate that, I decided to put a new theme song on the show. And if you've been following me on my Facebook and on our website, therealtruthaboutyou.com, I posted 3 different theme songs, and I asked you which one I should choose because I like them all. And the majority of you chose number 2, and this is number 2 right here that you're just listening to the background. And it's called Feel the Crunch or something like that anyway. But anyway, that's the new theme song for the show, The Real Truth About You. And it's great to have you here today. This podcast is going to be a little different because we're celebrating International Podcast Day. And if you want to find out more, you can go to internationalpodcastday.com. And it was formed by a whole group of podcasters, and it's to celebrate podcasting around the world. And sometimes I get a question, what is a podcast? Well, you're listening to one right now. This is a podcast. A podcast is basically, very loosely, a radio talk show that just about anyone can produce, like myself. If you have a microphone, you can speak to the world. So it's basically an audio broadcast that you can get and download onto your phone or your computer, and you can listen to it anywhere. Just about anywhere in the world you can get a podcast from. And there's people podcasting everywhere on just about every topic imaginable. And this is kind of what this show is about today. It's about the aspect of podcasting. And I said that there's so many different topics. You can go to iTunes or Google Music or just about anywhere. And if you have an interest in anything at all, from gardening to cars to airplanes to being a better person to how to grind your coffee. I listened to a podcast this morning at the internationalpodcastday.com. They have live streaming 24 hours of podcasting from podcasters all over the world. Usually a podcast is pre-recorded, and then you can just download it and listen to it anywhere as you're doing anything. And that's the great thing about podcasting. You can listen to them anywhere at any time. They're on demand. And I was just listening to a show about how to avoid having a horrible time in France is basically what it was about. And so she was talking about words that you can say in French if you go to a restaurant, and how they differ from the U.S. and the Western culture here, how different they are. And it was pretty cool. And after she finished, then there was another girl that just came on, and her name is Kelly Bader, and her show is called See Beyond Your Now. And she's a Christian, and so she talks a little bit about life in God and that kind of stuff. After her is Yan Ilunga, and they're talking about podcasting as a business asset. And there's a whole list that you can go to internationalpodcastday.com, and you can actually look at the schedule for this 24 hours of podcasting. It's always celebrated on September the 30th, International Podcast Day. And so I would encourage you to go, and if you go explore podcasts. If you're listening to this one, and if you listen to radio talk shows and those interest you, that kind of thing, then I would encourage you to go and find a podcast that you like. I just talked to someone last week, and she was actually asking me about how to podcast. And I says, do you ever listen to podcasts? She says, yes, actually, I regularly listen to 5 different shows a week. So she subscribes to different podcasts on iTunes. And that's really interesting. And you can get them from just about anywhere. If you just go podcasts on Google, and you'll find directories all over the place. iTunes, of course, is the biggest, but also Google Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio. They're all things you can get on your smartphone or access through the computer. And you can listen to just about any topic that interests you at all. Any topic at all that interests you. So I would say, who should podcast? I'm talking to you and you're a listener, but maybe, just maybe, you've got something you want to say, like this lady I was talking to. And she leads some things in a church, and she's kind of like wanted to learn how to podcast. And one of the things about podcasting, I've heard it say that a microphone has never been so powerful as it is today. With one microphone and even just your smartphone, you can reach an entire world audience. And depending on how popular your show is and the things that you say, and not necessarily that you do it just for popularity, but you have a possible reach of billions of people. So if you have anything to say on any topic at all, right, whether you're into car racing or whether you're into, like I said, coffee grinding, you hear me, I got the sniffles a little bit. It's actually 4:00 in the morning on September the 30th, and I couldn't sleep. So what do you do when you can't sleep? Well, I don't know. Some people watch TV. Well, I just thought I would get up because my wife's actually out of town for the night. So I thought, well, I'm going to get up and podcast. I'm going to celebrate International Podcast Day by actually having a podcast on podcasting to promote podcasting, So that's what I'm doing, and that's what time of the morning it is right now. At least the time that I'm recording the show. You might be listening to it some other time, some other day. You don't know. I don't know when you're listening to it, and that's the beauty of podcasting. So if you've got something to say to the world, even if you love coffee, or you love different kind of drinks, or you love there's some comic books, and you want to talk to the world about it, you would share it anywhere. You would share it on social media. Consider podcasting, because you could podcast right from your phone right now. Just to show how easy it is, I am podcasting from a $10, I think it was a $10 app. And I'm on my iPad. I got the sniffles right now for some reason. But anyway, it's called Boss Jock Studio, and it's available for the iPhone and the iPad. And there's lots of different apps that you can use on different, whatever your Android or your smartphone or whatever. And there's also a lot of computer software and things that you can use that make podcasting very easy. This app that I'm using right now, just to prove a point of how easy it is, it's like you just press buttons. Like when you heard welcome to the show, that was just a button I pressed. And then when you heard the theme song, that was another button I pressed. And to make my microphone work, that was another button I pressed. So there's lots of different things. Like if I wanted to, I could start up. Here's going to start a little piece of music here. Yeah, so that's in the background. Super funk, jamming horns, it's called. Just press the button, you're going to press it again, and it's going to fade out. So this is easy software. Anybody could podcast. If you've got something to say to the world, the lady that I was just listening to on this International Podcast Day website with the 24 hours of podcasting, live podcasting, she barely speaks English. Well, she speaks English, but you might have a little bit harder time to understand her, but she has quite a following So you don't even have to speak English very good if you want to reach the English world. If people are interested in what you have to say, then they'll just listen in, So it's not very hard to do. Podcasting is not very hard to do, at least the technical aspect of it is. If you want to have a regular show every week or every 2 days or every day, then you have to come up with content and topics and stuff like that. But you know what? You can do it because you can do hard things. What's podcasting done for me? Well, I got into podcasting, I can't remember, was it June 2016, something like that, and this is now September 2016, and it's allowed me to give me a voice to tell my story. I went through a lot of child abuse as a child and growing up, and had a real lack of self-confidence, and it's taken me a long time to get to where I am today, and now I'm talking to you about it. And I've always considered my life to be like a glass house, right, where everybody can see inside, and I really love to help people. And so when I do that, when I am helping somebody else, when somebody can see my life and benefit from it, I like that. I like to help people. So podcasting, I love audio for some reason. Video, I'm not so great on. Plus, it takes a lot more effort I consider a lot more effort to create videos than it does audio. And I mean, you can create a podcast while you're in your pajamas if you want to, but video is a little different, So that I love audio, and so that's why I podcast, and I love talk radio. I love listening to talk shows, and so that's why I podcast. But I get the opportunity to tell my story, to be able to reach other people. And it's my story that seems to be the most consistent. I'm a very diverse kind of person. And I always say I have a resume that looks like a restaurant menu because I've been into so many different things and passed through so many different jobs. And so I love to talk about all different kinds of things, but the thing I find most consistent that I talk about is how to improve your life, because that's been the focus of my life, how to get right to the core of who you truly are, your true self, and then live abundantly with that. And so that's the message I tend to choose to go with because it's the one I can stay the most consistent with. But anyway, I've also been able to, what's podcasting done for me? I've also been able to connect with people around the world. I have been getting emails from people in England, from Scotland, from the US, from Canada. We have listeners in India, Japan, Brazil, a whole bunch, Switzerland, the Netherlands, those kind of places, all over the world. And I'm not saying I have millions of people listening to me at all. That's not what it's about. But being able to connect with people that you've never met before and you don't know, and to get an email where you said one thing, it could have been one sentence that really touched somebody's life, that means a lot to me. Right? That means a lot to me. It might not mean a lot to you, and you might not care one way or the other, and you might be talking about a subject where it's not an intimate connection with somebody about their life, and if you're talking about cars, you can still influence people about cars and car choices or racing cars or parts or anything at all. If you're interested in Lego blocks, somebody else in the world is interested in what you're interested in. I guarantee you, if you're interested in something, somewhere in the world, someone else is interested in your topic too. So, you know what? Get into podcasting if you're interested in that kind of thing. And you don't have to be a great speaker. You just get on the mic and do it. I mess up a lot of times, and I stutter and I forget my words, and like right now, sniffle. Oh yeah. Oh, sniffle. You know what I mean? You would never do that normally, but hey, I'm doing it. But anyway, so just go ahead and do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're interested in podcasting, to do a podcast, just go ahead and do it. Just try it and then see what it's like. Record yourself on your phone. Just talk to yourself. I found the first time I started listening to my own voice, it was difficult because there's something about when you either look at yourself on a video or you're listening to yourself. And it's not like, it's funny because you can record something for social media, like you're at a fun place and you're doing stuff and people post a video of you doing something stupid or whatever, and it's fine. But as soon as you get on a microphone or you do something where it's almost purposeful, you're doing it on purpose and you want somebody to listen to it, then all of a sudden you tend to get self-conscious. And I remember listening to my voice and I'm going, oh boy. And it took me a little while to get over that, but I just decided, you know what? I don't care. Just do it. 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 And after a while, I just started getting used to it. And also, talking as a podcast, when you're talking, like I'm talking to you directly, but you're not right in front of me. Like at 4 o'clock in the morning, if you're right in front of me, we've got a problem here, but you are right in front of me in my mind. And so when you're podcasting or you're doing something that you're trying to talk to someone else, it seems funny at first when you talk and there's not actually anybody else in the room. And over time, you just start to develop that image of you listening. And so that's who I talk to. I talk to an image of you listening. And one of the other things that podcasting has done for me, because I'm in the process of cancer recovery right now, and this is not a podcast about cancer or cancer recovery, but it's just a podcast about life. But what it's done for me, podcasting, I've had to take almost a sabbatical from working. I can't do very much physically right now. I get tired very easily, and there's a whole bunch of yak, whatever. But what podcasting does is when I am feeling good, when I have an hour, or when I have time where I'm having a great day, and I do have some great days, don't get me wrong, but it allows me an outlet to do something. And I really like that. I'm a person who likes to do. And so podcasting gives me something to do, and I really like it, and it fits within my energy regime and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really good for me to be able to podcast like that. I had another question here that I wrote down, and this is the first time I've actually followed any kind of notes at all. Usually I just turn on the mic and away I go. But I wrote down this other question. Can you make money from podcasting? Well, I got to say that probably the majority of people don't, right? A lot of people podcast. I guess it's like people who are into ham radio, like amateur radio. They just spend money on equipment and they love talking to other people. Or, you know, if you're a social media buff, you go on social media and you just do it. You know what? You don't think about making money or anything. You just enjoy doing it. And most people that podcast have something to say and they just love doing it. So they just do it, right? And they get the pleasure of other people listening or seeing people subscribe to their podcast. But having said that, one of the guys that I've been following on his podcast, it's called Entrepreneur on Fire, and he's been doing this for some time, right? He has been doing it for a few years. I think 2012 is when he started, and it's 2016 right now. And his name is John Lee Dumas. And he you can go to his website, eofire.com, I think it's EOF.com or something like that. But if you do a search for John Lee Dumas, you'll find him. He's a pretty popular podcaster. Anyway, when he posts on his site, because he teaches you also how to podcast, and he's talking about entrepreneurship, and he interviews different entrepreneurs every single day. He has a podcast that goes out every single day, and he's just an on fire kind of person. Anyway, he posts on his site and he teaches you how to do this, but he makes roughly around $250,000 a month from one podcast. He's learned how to monetize his podcast. And entrepreneurship and business, when you talk about things like that, they are very popular podcasts. They're a very popular subject matter, right? So, and he's talking to people who are already in business, and he's learned how to make money from his podcast. And so he's making, $150,000 to $250,000 a month. And he's recently moved. He was from the States. I think it was Dallas, and he's moved to Puerto Rico, Mexico, to a really nice place, and he still podcasts from there, him and his life partner. But anyway, and there's also Kelly Bader, who I was just listening to, who doesn't speak English the greatest, but has a very popular podcast. It's called the Godly MBA podcast, and she started a virtual consulting business from her podcast. And so that's been going very well for her. So you can make money with a podcast. You just have to learn how to do it, and you have to build up your subscribers. And there's lots of places that you can go to learn how to podcast. And I definitely learned some things. Do I make money at podcasting? Not so much. Actually, it's zero right now, because that's not my goal right now. But it will be in the future, because I'd love to make an income from it. I've always wanted to have some kind of residual income. So it doesn't matter where you are or what you do, something else can support you. And so you can get involved in charities or get involved in things that you might not have got involved in before, because there's a residual income. And by residual income, I mean like the same as an author writes a book, and then you do all the work once, and then you just go in the process of marketing, and then the book starts to sell. And that's called residual income. When you do the work once and then it just keeps paying you, that's residual income. And that's the kind of income that I would like to be able to establish. And at some point I might share that. But anyway, it's International Podcast Day today, and I just want you to go out and celebrate it. Go out and find some kind of podcast. Find something that you're really interested in. If you're a listener, find out what kind of podcasts you would like to listen to. If you love listening to talk radio, if you're still listening to me talk right now, obviously you're into talk radio. You'd be into podcasts. And the great thing about podcasts is you can listen to them anywhere. You can download them on the go. And you know what? Go out and find a podcast that you like. There, I just pressed another button. I'm going to start some background music as I slowly end this podcast. If you're into podcasting, you can always go to our website, therealtruthaboutyou.com. If you're into wanting to learn, shoot me a text, or not a text, an email at support@therealtruthaboutyou.com. And I'll see if I can point you in the right direction, how to learn how to podcast and how to get into it. It doesn't take a lot of money either. It doesn't take a lot of money, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to get into it. And it's not hard. I'm just doing it on my iPad right now. So anyway, go to our website, therealtruthaboutyou.com. And thank you so much for celebrating International Podcast Day with me today. My name is Will Sinclair, in case I didn't mention it at the start. And you know what? Love you guys tons. Thanks for listening. I'd love to see you next time on our next edition of The Real Truth About You. And have an awesome day. And remember that you rock.